feel from the title, what is LOTO? This is going to be the title of the actual presentation. It's something you've probably never seen before. Its origins are of a technical nature. However, to understand what we're going to teach you today, you don't really need to understand the background. You can take it for what it is on its face value, and you should obviously get something out of it. I've included just sort of handouts for you as we go through, as if I was doing a presentation. The purpose of today's course then, or sorry, presentation, is understanding what we mean by LOTO. So straight away I want to just, let you know that in terms of background knowledge, you don't need to know anything about electricity. We're all aware of electricity, we're all aware of it in our homes, we all know what a plug and socket is, don't we? We all know what a vacuum cleaner is, we all know what things can start up in our homes and what are dangerous, lights, that sort of stuff. So in a sense, think of this presentation as a presentation involving safety. That's the slant I want to put on it. So if you want to follow me through the presentation, you can go through these sort of slides in there, just basically follow that. The first thing I want to write down really is the objectives. Basically, just a basic understanding of LOTO. So, LOTO, what it means. A basic understanding, and I put basic because, as with all subjects, they can get very complex. I'm not going to kid you in the fact that this topic has got lots of origins in the Health and Safety Work Act, the Electricity Work Regulations, a whole host of regulations are behind this, they're sitting behind it. But we don't need to worry about those. Just a basic understanding of LOTO. That's the first one. And then it's basically a practical demonstration that I'm just going to give you, which doesn't take long. Practical demonstration, I mean that you're going to show me that you can do what I've asked you to do as well. So that's that part. And then just a simple assessment to show that you've understood what we've talked about today. So sort of feedback for me really, to make sure I've not been talking to myself. That assessment takes the form of 3 questions which are right at the end of your handouts, just basically what we've done today, and also I'm just going to ask you to actually do a LOTO as well while you're here. Very simple. For which I'm going to use this equipment here. So what I'll do is I'll start then basically talking about LOTO. So if I said to any of you, what do you understand by LOTO? I'll be very surprised if you actually gave me the definition I was looking for today. But has anyone got any ideas as to what they understand by LOTO? It doesn't matter what it is, it could be anything.
Lottery ticket.
Lottery tickets, good. Now you'll be surprised how many people will say that if you tell them about LOTO. And it's a good way of remembering it, because I always like to think when they say that, or when people say that, your life is a bit of a lottery if you're not safe. If you don't obey health and safety rules and stuff, your life can be a bit of a lottery. And believe it or not, what we're going to talk about today is one of the main causes of injury in industry and in homes. One of the main causes of accidents involving not just electricity, but all forms of power, all forms of energy, are actually all to do with LOTO. So what is LOTO? Let's get straight to it then. LOTO has got 2 parts to it, the low and the toe, if you like. They stand for lock off, and the last part, which you're perhaps not as familiar with, is tag off. So, what does this relate to? I've got a piece of kit here that you don't need to worry about what's inside it. You might recognise this piece of kit, which is basically an extension, contrived just to illustrate how we can isolate extensions. It's all about isolation. So, what is the main cause of problems in industry and even in the home? Can anyone perhaps give me an idea what might be a problem in the home? What can go wrong in the home when you're dealing with the dangers around the home? In terms of, well, let's be specific about electricity. What are the dangers of electricity in the home, do you think?
You're leaving it on.
Leaving things on, good.
Tripping over cables.
Tripping over cables, that sort of thing, excellent. What about putting power onto devices? Switching on your washing machine? Vacuum cleaners, television sets?
Overloading the system.
Overloading the system. What happens when something trips? Have you ever been in a situation where your fuse has gone and that sort of stuff? Yeah. Who resets it?
Dad.
Yeah. So, we appreciate that there are dangers, particularly with electricity. We all know about dangers. More accidents occur in the home than anywhere else, that sort of stuff. LOTO is really all about making sure that when we we as professionals in the professional industry say that something is actually dead, we mean it's dead. Because the one cause of accidents in all industry and in the home is that things start up unexpectedly. So you could be in the house thinking that the socket is dead, you might have your hands wet, someone might have the socket might be in bad condition, you get a shock, even though someone's already told you they've switched it off because it's dangerous. Now believe it or not, in industry you would think they would nail this down to a T, but they don't. In industry, people still make the same mistakes. They think something's been locked off and made secure and safe with no electricity on, and guess what happens when people lock this stuff off and then people start to go and work in it? What do you think might happen if we're not careful?
Start fires.
Start fires? What about if I was to, for example, on here, you'll see on here, this is what we call an isolation switch. It's the same on here, look, this device, and to isolate it, we simply turn the switch. And I'll show you a bit more carefully with this one. If you actually have a look at this, you'll see there's a hole here, which means that it should be off, and it says off on it. And there's a position there, a little hole where you can put a lock through. Why might it be important to put a lock through there, do you think?
Yes, for children.
For children? Just generally speaking, I only talk to the wide world. Why do you think we would lock off power? Stop it from coming back on, good, yes. Sorry, yes, to stop it from coming back on, because that's what happens. People come along and they see that and say, who switched that off? Switch it back on. Immediately they switch that back on, somebody could be working on something down there that they think is safe and get a shock and could kill them. And that's the main cause of accidents in industry. So, we lock it off. Now we can use lots of methods of locking things off. This is just an example here of some locks. You'll notice that when we lock things off, it's also important to know who's locked things off. Because unless you're responsible for locking that off, you shouldn't be touching it. Electricity is a dangerous thing, and even in the house, you're not supposed to change a light bulb, because in theory, you're supposed to go back to the consumer unit. Do you know what I mean by consumer unit, where the power comes in? The consumer unit, you should switch it off at the appropriate fuse, or isolator, and then you're supposed to change the bulb. In the meantime, while you're there, you could be working on the bulb. What could happen?
Oh, that's right.
Yes, well, if they've isolated it, but you're now working on the bulb, you know, the experienced person, what can actually happen while you're working on the bulb? Or someone is. Someone could do what I just did. They could switch it back on. Switch it back on. So, to comply with the health and safety regulations and the electricity regulations and common sense in the house, we lock them off. But we don't just, so we just put the key through there, that locks it off. So that's the low part of LOTO. The tag off then is this part. What these do, these are different tags, what we call tags. And what we do here is we give information to people. So for example, if an electrician was working in your home and he locked off the power, he should, as an electrician by law, if he's going to leave that isolation, put on a tag. Because he is a professional, which means he comes under the electricity work regulations. And therefore, he should put a tag on to say he's locked it off, not to reinstate it, and the reasons usually why he's done it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, if we've locked something off, secured the lock, and we've put a note on to say where we are, why we've done it, and why we've isolated it, then anybody coming into contact with that should A, be safe, and B, know exactly who's locked it off and why. Does that make sense? So, the point I really want to get across to you today is don't worry about understanding electricity, but just be aware that in practice, and you should follow those procedures in your home as well. You might have to go through a official procedure of tagging off, but always remember that electricity or any form of energy, if it comes back on unexpectedly, that leaves you as a person totally vulnerable in that house. So, we have a formal system of locking off and tagging off, controlled by the Health and Safety Work Act and the Electricity Work Regulations, to ensure that we're working completely safe. So the second part of this course really is, first, does everybody understand that basically? I mean by LOTO, lock off and tag off. Don't be too worried about what you put on here, but they generally tend to put the name and phone number on the back, that's the tag. The lock, you'll see that have different colours of lock. That's another system in place. Any idea what a colour might refer to in terms of why we might use a different colour for different locks? Any ideas?
I thought it could be because that was a person's colour.
Exactly.
But if they've got that, then
it's a person's colour. What do you think that colour denotes?
as to what the position is?
Exactly. That's exactly right. I was very surprised actually. The colour denotes not only the type of person working with it, but also his function. And just for information's sake, a red lock means that you're an electrician who's competent to work on. A yellow lock is for people who aren't competent in electricity. So that's another reminder that this course is not just about competent electricians, it's open for anybody. The blue one actually means it's just for a mechanic. It's not important to remember that, that's not really part of the course. The main thing is that you understand, and perhaps from now on people, let's say LOTO, you'll be able to say lock off and provide the information, tag off. Practical demonstration then, really, is, all I've done here is, it's just an ordinary lock really, nothing different apart from its colour. I take it out. So what they would do in practice with this or any other piece of equipment, just like an extension, switch it off. You have to know it's completely off, and so you're absolutely sure about that. You put your lock through, take away the key, but at the same time, put a tag through as well, just to say. Then you take the key away, and if anyone came now, if I left that in here, you would see that information. It's a caution sign, and also it would tell you who's put it on. So if you're thinking, who's put that on there? You shouldn't have done that. There's a number on the back. Just ring them up and say who's done it. And then when you finish the job, or when the person finishes the job, they just simply take off the lock and remove the tag. Put the power back on, only when it's safe to do so. Just like in your house, if people are reinstating power, you shouldn't really reinstate power if your vacuum cleaner or your washing machine's in pieces and it's still connected. It's unsafe. And that's the same principle in industry as well. Never put power back on unless you've checked with everybody if it's safe to do so. And so, was that enough for everyone in the practical demonstration? If you want to actually have a go there, what I'd like you to do then really, just for me, before I just ask you 3 questions at the end, is really just a simple assessment. Then is I'd just like each individual just to come up, if you like, very briefly, and show me how you lock off and tag off this kit. So there's the kit. You can use any lock you like, or tag, and just lock it off for me. I'll start with you.
May I first?
Off you go. Good, yeah. Yeah, you pop that through there, good. Good. And then you can just take away the key. Yeah? You don't have to go with that quickly, you're going to just take it up as well. And you're instant. Good, yeah, see how easy it is? Yeah, good to hear, thanks. Now ordinarily there's a lot of stuff that goes around this as well. But all I want you today is really just get a chance to just remember what you're doing. It's a physical process. If ever you were in a position where you're isolating something or making something safe, remember there are rules that surround it. Good? Are you alright? Yeah. Excellent, yes. How easy was that? I mean, a lot easier than doing that. But, and believe it or not, I know it's, I can't really ask you to do it, but you're okay with that? Can you just put your hand through the screen and have a go? So basically, that's what we mean by LOTO. LOTO is locking off and tagging off. In industry, it's all to do with the regulations, the electricity rate regulations, 1989. I'm throwing that in, you don't need to remember it. Is really saying by law it's a legal requirement. Believe it or not, you saw how simple that was to do that. You know, everyone came up and thought, well, this is easy, this is the thing. And yet, it still happens that people don't lock off properly. Can anyone just finally, I know we did it very simply, can anyone think of anything that could have gone wrong with what we just did? Just thinking outside the box a little bit now, there was a simple procedure, what might have gone wrong in practice with what we just did? What other things we might have needed to check, do you think? You're imagining the scenario you're at home, you've got a washing machine that someone says, it's been plumbed in, we can't isolate, so we have to isolate it on the actual fuse box. Someone says they've done it. They go to the fuse box, and they say they've isolated it, they've put on the lock and the tag. What could still have gone wrong, do you think?
They might not have locked it properly.
Might not have locked it properly, absolutely. There's 2 things that go wrong. You might not have locked it properly because it's a device and a switch And switches can break. You can turn a switch and they don't switch off. So in the home, always remember that. When you're dealing with electricity, don't always assume that you've switched something off, it's off. Never put yourself in a position where your life is in someone else's hands. And the other thing was, that's a very good answer, anything else? So the switch might not be working right, and also you might have isolated the wrong piece of kit. You might have isolated something else completely, you don't know. So what should you have done, do you think, or whoever was responsible, do you think, should have done to make sure they got the right piece of kit?
Double check
Check the
something.
appliance that you're using.
Sorry?
Check the appliance that you're trying to switch off.
Absolutely. Try and start the appliance up. Absolutely. They're the two golden rules. Never assume it's been isolated because you think you have, and always try and restart the appliance. Electrician would have gone further, would have done an electrical test, but as non-electrical people, that's what the regulations tell us to do. Use any possible means to check that it's safe. So, I was happy with it. So just finally then, just to say that we've gone through the objectives, really. Do we have a basic understanding?
Yeah.
Straightforward, really, isn't it? It's got a background in the regulations, but for us as people, we understand the concept. Practical-wise, very straightforward. Are we all okay with that? The simple assessment then, there's just 3 questions right at the back of there, which if you could just answer them for me, and then I can say, by looking at them and say, you definitely understand. You'll see, that's it. Just put in your own words what you think, first of all, what is meant by LOTO then. What's the main consequences of failing to apply it then? Just very briefly, what do you think is the consequence? Both for yourselves, not that you would get involved in our electrical kit, but open it up to yourself, to the wider world. Always double check things. Don't always take someone else's word for it. Good. And then the last one really is, why is it important to include a tag, really? And how would you go through that, really? Why is it important to include a tag? Exactly, yeah. There's only one thing worse than misinformation, is no information. And that, to be honest, if you've actually got those things today, that's absolutely brilliant, because there are courses designed for people that are based on that alone. There's lots of other stuff surrounding it, but that is the message that's getting across in the course, and I think, in a few minutes...
It's not funny when you get together.
It isn't, is it?
Sorry, Mark.
So I was very pleased with that. Any questions, really? Do you feel we met the objectives?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I was quite pleased with the assessment. You all confidently went up there and switched it off and put it through. Are you okay?
Just one quick question.
Yes.
You said that obviously the colour codes
Oh yes, all the lots, yeah.
that use them. The yellow ones, you said they were for people that weren't competent in using electric.
Yes.
Who would that be?
That would be people like supervisors and operators. People that work with the kit every day. And what they tend to do is, in practice, is that they're responsible for the running of the business or whatever. It could be someone even in a small business. They haven't got the electrical competency to find out what's wrong. But to leave the power on is an unsafe position. So they, by law, have to go and make it safe so that someone then can come along and then do the job who is a skilled person. They hand it back to the unskilled person who then takes responsibility for the whole job. As long as your lock is, you see what I mean? As long as your lock's on there, you're responsible for safety. According to regulations, if anything went wrong and your lock's on there, and it doesn't matter what it is, they would come to you. The health and safety would come to you as being liable for that isolation. So what operators tend to do is they tend to lock it off, hand it over to someone else, but then when they hand it back, like an electrician, they have to check everything to make sure it's safe. That one golden rule is never put power back on until you're absolutely safe, that there's no one there that can be injured, and there's no one there that's done anything wrong. So it's completely safe to put back on. And that's why they use these colour codes, to denote what basic background the person's got. So they know that if a red one's been put on, they know an electrician's working on it. And they know if it's a yellow one, they know an operator's working on it. Simple as that, really. It's a system that works very well, saves hundreds of lives a year. Well, thank you for that. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.